Good evening to everyone in Alberta, Canada, and beyond. It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, and I'm Kerry Lambert, and I welcome you to an online webinar evening of solutions for a new Alberta, brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project, also known as APP. APP's purpose is to educate, inspire, and unite all Albertans, businesses, and organizations to protect the prosperity, individual freedoms, rights, and self-determination by empowering the Alberta government to restructure Alberta's relationship within or without Canada. And of course, we couldn't do this without you. If you can, please share this webinar on various social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Rumble, but you can still share it other socials like Telegram, Threads, etc. As well as I know after this live, we also put on other video and audio sites like Apple, Spotify, BitChute, Vimeo, etc. APP is membership driven with a goal of 1 million plus members to help steer the political process. You can find out more by going to our new and improved website. Look at this. It is under, I'm juggling a bunch of different things here. It is under albertaprosperityproject.com. You can go there and it's been revised. You can now check out our little pillars of freedom, if you want to call it that. We've got taxation, pension, policing, immigration, and EI. You can also click on the referendum and it will take you to the register your intent to vote yes in a referendum on Alberta's independence. We've got 17,000 people lined up for that so far. Thank you so much. We can also click on there. You can find out upcoming events as well. And we actually do have quite a few events coming up here. So not only do we have our chapter events showing up on here, we also have our annual meeting, which is our members meeting, our supporters meeting. And that's at a new Sarepta Community Hall on June 1st. You can click on that and find out a little bit more about what the itinerary is and the poster, etc., etc. I know there will be a few people there. There will be, let me tell you who's going to be there. Michael Wagner is our keynote speaker. There will be Chris Scott and Jonathan Baines, who is our new CEO. Chris will be handing the reins over onto that, as well as there'll be a little social after at 6 o'clock with some unknown DJ named DJ Karaoke. I don't know if he's good or not, but you might want to go check that out. So I'm hoping that we get a few people out there. It's really important that we get community and we get people involved. And what a great way to do this. There's so many people involved in this, and that's just one thing that we're doing. We're also doing a door knocking campaign that'll be coming up with that as well. I believe we talked a little bit about that last week or the week before. And you can also find out more about that by going to or sending a message off to contact@albertaprosperity.com. So with that, tonight's episode is called The Way Forward, How to Escape the Totalitarian Control of the New World Order and Heal from its Trauma, with my guest, Donald Lee. I love that. I love the titles of his books. If you don't remember Donald from last time, Donald's book was What the Hell is Going On? Best title of a book ever. And if you don't have it, I'm going to say, what the hell? Why don't you have one? But you got to go out and get one. And if you don't, you might be able to see Donald. He's doing the rounds in Alberta. We'll be talking a little bit about that. He is a musician, band director, teacher, economist, public speaker, author, a Renaissance man to no end. And with that, you know what? I'm going to bring him on right away. Remember, this is a live webinar. So if you want to ask questions, just put 3 question marks before the question, and we will get to the questions right away. Donald, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you
Excellent.
for that beautiful, kind introduction, Kerry. I am impressed.
Well, I've gotten a little better at this since last February when you were on here and we were promoting the book. Wow, I said to you as we were beginning your new book, which I will pop up here. Just give me a second here. I know I've got it all queued up. Oh, there you are. Look at that. The Way Forward. There it is. The Way Forward. I'm going to put that back there. So you literally just finished this book.
Yeah, it became available 6 weeks ago, I guess.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So I worked very hard to try to finish it up over the fall and the winter, and to get it out in time for this year's Cross Canada book and speaking tour. And I just spent the month of April in British Columbia. I think I spoke in about 17 different places.
Yeah.
And I've got 14 or 15 lined up for Alberta for May, starting tomorrow in Grand Prairie, kind of gradually working south as the month progresses. And yeah, I've got some little bit set up in Points East as well. So I'll be hopefully going just about as far east as you can go in Canada. We'll see.
That's awesome. Spread the word as much as you can across this great nation. But yeah, centralize as much as you can in Alberta. We definitely want, the nice thing about doing these webinars is we talk about so many different things, right? So even on the website, we just show, we talk about policing, we talk about immigration, we talk about those social aspects and a lot of political stuff. We talk about, what can we do? How can we get involved in all that? But we're missing a key component from that. And you fill that component, Donald, by saying we're doing all this stuff externally, but what about our own internal?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is, I think everybody that's involved in, I'll call it the Freedom Group, or maybe just is aware of what's going on in the world. We all run into these days where I wouldn't say you're depressed, but you're feeling deflated. Right.
Oh, yes.
And I think it's important to, again, we always say go out and talk to people, because it's a great way to pick you up, and you get to see how many other people are out there talking with you. But these books have been great in regards to talking about why things are happening and what you can do about it in your own internal, either personally or in your community or with your family. So, yeah, I think these are great. I'm not sure how you want to jump into this, but other than saying, like I said, I think it's a continuation of this book, or at least it certainly seems like it. I don't know if you want to mention anything about this book to kind of segue into your new book.
Sure. Well, I wrote the book, What the Hell's Going On, and published it about a year and a half ago, and spent a good part of last year touring around Canada, speaking to freedom groups about the ideas from that book. And like that was what prompted that book was, of course, 2020, and everybody's lives were turned upside down, and the whole world, it just became unbelievable. And like many people, I asked myself this question, like, this is the flu. Like, what the hell's going on? There's obviously there's some lies here, because this doesn't make sense. The story is not holding together. We have some of the leading, scientists and medical researchers in the world raising red flags about all this, and they're just kind of like discarded, deplatformed. And I thought, hold it. That's not how science works, or at least not how science is supposed to work.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I did, what we now call going down the rabbit hole, trying to figure out what's really going on. And what I came to realize was that there are multiple frauds. And I'd known for a long time that some of the things that were happening in the world just didn't make sense. I mean, I did my economics degree in the 1980s, and younger people don't remember this, but older people remember this inflation and stuff of the 1970s. That was fresh on my mind, and I had a particular interest in monetary policy. And so, then in about the mid to late 90s, monetary policy stopped making sense, and it hasn't made sense for quarter of a century or so. So, like, I'd known that there was some real, like, strange, fishy stuff going on there. And I've known for decades that this climate nonsense just doesn't make scientific sense, doesn't hold together. But when I went down and did this, okay, now what's with this virus thing? So, I mean, I've been a band director. Like, I don't know anything about viruses that other people don't know. So, I kind of did a deep dive and figured, hold it, this whole thing is a fraud. This is actually biological warfare. And the more I researched, the more I figured out, hold it, there's all kinds of frauds that are going on. There's a financial and currency fraud going on. So there's a chapter in that. So this book, What the Hell's Going On, talks about roughly a dozen different frauds, because that's the subtitle is The Web of Fraud. That is enslaving everyone, and how we can escape to freedom. So then as I toured around Canada last year, a lot of people said things to me like, we're tired of talking about the problems. We want to talk about the solutions. I thought, well, that's a good idea. I want to talk about solutions too. And so almost every chapter in What the Hell's Going On ends with a little section called What You Can Do Now.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I'll take those little what you can do now sections and flesh them out just a little bit, and I'll put them together into an essay, and I'll give it away free on my website. But as I started working, and I realized, well, I can't just say that. It doesn't make sense on its own. I need to explain that a little bit more. And it got expanded into a book, the way forward.
Yeah.
And the way forward, a good part of the book focuses on trying to understand the three types of warfare that we're being subjected to. And everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but many people have kind of understood this, at least in some sense. Many people have commented to me, oh, this is a spiritual war. Yeah, absolutely it is. So we're being attacked with psychological warfare, with spiritual warfare, and on the physical level, it's what's called fifth generation warfare. So in the way forward, I go into a little bit more of an in-depth, not really in-depth because it's just one book, explanation of what those three types of warfare are all about, how they work, and how we can sensibly respond to them. Yeah. Because, as I've gone around, what you expressed earlier, how, well, yeah, there's days when we feel frustrated and down, and this is all over. This is all over the world. People are feeling like this because, we've been fighting for 4 years. And of course, a lot of people say 4 years, like I've been awake for 40 years. And yeah, I mean, those of us who have only been fighting since 2020 are late to the party in a certain sense. But yeah, we've been fighting for years and we don't seem to really be making much headway. This steamroller of totalitarianism just keeps coming. So, of course, people are frustrated. People have dropped out of the freedom movement. Various freedom groups have dissolved. Some have torn themselves apart. Naturally, we're frustrated. And I think that there's many reasons for that, of course. But I think that one of the big reasons is that we've tried to accomplish things, but the methods we've used, or what we might say the tactics we've used, we're simply not capable of achieving the objectives we had in mind. So I think we all benefit from kind of taking a step back. And that's what I do in these books. Look at kind of the big picture from the 30,000 feet, so to speak. So there's three kinds of warfare. How do they work? What kind of strategies, tactics, and weapons are being used against us? And what can we do about it? How can we sensibly respond? Because some of the things we've done, I think we can look and say that didn't work, or it didn't achieve at least what we had hoped it to achieve. Yeah. And so what can achieve, the objectives that we have in mind. So that's kind of the general 30,000 foot look at the book. Spiritual warfare, psychological warfare, and fifth generation warfare.
And you go into the history on how all this stuff and even cite examples of how it's been used in the past. And sure enough, that's basically how they're doing it again.
Yeah, well, particularly in What the Hell's Going On in the chapter that starts out kind of understanding something about biological warfare. Yeah. Right. I did kind of cut that down from earlier versions of the book, so it's quite short and concise. But yeah, I mean, if you understand at least a little bit about the history of biological warfare and kind of how that developed over the last century or so, then it makes it much easier to see and understand that, that's how the shots are a biological weapon. Because, one thing that, I don't think anybody else, at least that I've come across, has stated it quite the way I do in What the Hell's Going On, is that usually with a biological weapon, the strategy has been you want to use the weapon on the battlefield, and then you want to be able to have some kind of a way to protect your own soldiers so they don't succumb to the biological weapon too. So with a virus, that's typically a vaccine, right? So if you can vaccinate your soldiers and then spread this
contagion
virus pathogen around the battlefield, then the enemy will get sick, but your guys won't, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the virus is the weapon, the vaccine is your defense. But what the Americans did, I mean, it's brilliantly evil, is that they put that combo the other way around, and that the vaccine is actually the weapon, and the virus right? The SARS-CoV-2 virus, which people are still arguing about. There is a virus, there isn't a virus. I don't know. But see, in the end, it doesn't matter, because the virus was just kind of the feint to lure the enemy into the trap, and then you get them with the vaccine. Because no matter what virus you put out there, not everybody gets sick, not everybody dies or is affected by it. But if you can get this injection into everybody's arm, you got everybody.
That is true. Yeah.
So it's the vaccine that's the real biological weapon, and it's a stealth bioweapon. And as I wrote in the book, and I still think we haven't seen the end of that. Mm-hmm. Like, there may yet still be other modes of action, because there's multiple modes of action, quite obviously, with the vaccine. It's killing people in many ways, right? Some people died, within minutes, some within hours, some within days, some within weeks, some within months. And it's blood disorders, heart attacks, neurological diseases, the terrible cancers. Like, it's a whole host of stuff. And each one of those is a slightly different, mode of action, or the way it affects the human body. And, some people are still talking about, this still has some of those lipid nanoparticles that haven't actually released their cargo yet, because they're programmed to release in response to a certain frequency that's going to be sent out over the 5G system. Then it'll release, and maybe.
And I've heard about that. I'm kind of optimistic that doesn't happen. But that's
we'll see. But we haven't seen the end of it. I mean, that weapon is still at work, and as we've seen, the excess death rates are still going up. Yes, they haven't peaked yet. Yeah, that's right. So, this weapon is still in play.
No, that's true. So let's jump into some of the book. There's lots of things that you can probably talk about. Where do you want to start with this? With the way, let's go the way forward. Where do you want to start the way?
Well, let's. Do you want to talk about psychological warfare?
I'd love to be able to talk about that. Yes. So I will let you talk about it.
Okay, good. Well, there's lots to it. Mm-hmm. And what I describe, and I mentioned this also in What the Hell's Going On, but I go more in depth into the psychological warfare and what's really called mind war. Mm-hmm. Mind war is the title of a 1980, that's 40 years ago, almost 44 years ago, a 1980 paper by a couple of American psychological warfare officers, people who might be familiar with this. One of those two is actually probably one of the most prominent Satanists in the late 20th century. So I always say, there's probably a connection there too, right? But anyway, so they talk about mind war as being broader and deeper than traditional psychological warfare. And the idea is that you take control of your adversary's mind and you kind of construct his perception of reality in such a way that the adversary makes up his own mind exactly the way you want him to. And so that's part of all of these frauds. People have these fantasies that, cow farts are destroying the climate of the planet, or, if they drive to the grocery store, they're destroying. Like, this is utter nonsense. This is fantasy. There's no there's no scientific evidence for any of this nonsense, right? This is a fantasy. And of course, the most craziest fantasy is the one that we have men that think that they can become women, or think they are women and they just need help, like whatever, like this is a fantasy. So we have all these fantasies. All the frauds are designed to convince people of some fantasy, right? That the government's there to look after you. For this biological weapon is safe and effective, and it will protect you. All of this stuff. Yeah. So when people's whole perception of reality is changed, then they make up their minds exactly as the enemy wants them to make up their minds. So we had people lining up to get the vaccine because their perception of reality had been changed to such a degree that they thought this would save them, when in fact this was a weapon that they were going to most likely, not everybody, lots of them were duds, right? Lots of them were blanks, but so that's the fundamental idea, is that you change people's perception of reality so that they make up their own minds exactly the way you want them to make up their minds.
And how were they really doing it? Because we know that, obviously they were through the media. They were certain media outlets were paid by the government to talk about all the media then. Which is why we do what we do, because we're not getting paid from anybody, as you can tell from a really crappy little setup here. But it's but all the independent media is definitely something that I'm guaranteed 99% of the viewers on here are now detached from watching the mainstream media and are now getting their news sources from sources like this, as well as what the other mainstream media that does get paid, but not by the government. They fundraise, so things like Rebel News or Western Standard, True North, those sorts of news outlets where I would definitely give them more time and effort to tell the story than to listen to whatever garbage is happening on CTV.
Yeah, people are moving away. In fact, I saw a meme just the other day. It said, "Congratulations to CBC becoming the first media outlet in history to have more employees than viewers."
I saw that. That's pretty funny. And probably also true, except that the Canadian government is still giving them millions of dollars in order to keep broadcasting the message. So not only are they doing stuff in terms of social media and broadcasting it out so that people get this fear, but even through our own social media networks, through Facebook and Instagram and anything out there. And some of it seems to be bought and paid for. Some of it is just a lot of hearsay. People are often making outlandish claims just so that they can get their voice out there. But it's still causing people to have this psychological fear of what is going on. And I don't know who to believe. So what do you think we should be doing about that? Should we just run and hide and not take in any media? Should we just only talk to our neighbors and hope that they know the best? Like, what do you think we should be doing about
it? It's like the old saying, you can run, but you can't hide.
No, that's true too.
No. So, this makes life very difficult because essentially, I say you have to take the advice that, what was his name, gave to Indiana Jones: trust no one.
Yeah.
But we can't actually live our lives that way, right? But we do have to be very, very circumspect. So essentially, that whoever is controlling all this stuff has taken control over all the what we used to call authorities, right? Mm-hmm. So scientific authorities, medical authorities, educational authorities, political, like they're essentially all captured. Mm-hmm. And there's various means that has happened that probably a lot of people know a lot of them anyway. But so like whatever comes out of the mainstream media or out of the mouth of a politician or out of the mouth of a scientist, like you simply can't believe him. As I say in both books, but particularly in The Way Forward, trust has gone. This changes everything.
That's true.
Because every relationship we have is based on trust. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't trust your husband or your wife anymore, your marriage is over. Yeah. And if you don't trust your employee, you got to fire him, right? Yeah. If you don't trust your banker, you need to bank somewhere else. I mean, if you don't trust the people you're doing business with, you're going to stop doing business with them.
That is
so
true.
Trust is the foundation of every relationship. Yeah. So this is extremely destabilizing to our society. And as I explained what the hell's going on, like, it's the whole idea. Mm-hmm. It's obviously they want it's that whoever's behind this is trying to destabilize Western society. Like,
they're doing a hell of a job.
Oh yeah, they are, and it's going to get worse. Yeah. So, but this fits exactly with communist theory and practice, because you can't make fundamental changes in a stable society. You have to first destabilize the society and either subvert or destroy all of the social structures or institutions in society. You know, it's the old communist motto: rule or ruin. Right? You either control these various structures in society, or you ruin them, you destroy them. And so we see destruction of our society going everywhere, and destroying the very basis of trust, and destroying every relationship. Yeah, that's going on. So there's obviously a plan to bring about some form of societal collapse. And I'm sure they'll achieve some degree of success in doing that. Now, the big question is, because there's this other communist saying, order out of chaos. Yeah, they first create the chaos, right? And then they can impose the order they want, a totalitarian order, a new world order. Yeah, it's totalitarian. So that's why these terms, that's why you have to destroy this, why we're creating chaos. Chaos in Canada, chaos in the United States. Like, all the news is all about chaos everywhere. And it's going to get worse because it's all planned. So, but all of us can choose something different, because out of this chaos, when society collapses more and more, we can choose to come together as individuals and as communities, join together and form a new structure of society. And that's ultimately what I see as the way forward for us. But we need to start now. That's why in the book and in my presentation, I say, start now, form a freedom group or join a freedom group. Yeah. We need thousands of freedom groups and small ones all over the place. And we need to be able to, in our groups, in our small groups, we need to be able to both work independently and to work cooperatively on projects and issues that, work cooperatively with other freedom groups. So this I see as being us building a nucleus of a new foundation of freedom, I call it a new paradigm of social organization, because all of our structures in society have become corrupted and have become totalitarian in function. That is, they are functioning in a totalitarian way. They have the appearance or the form of democracies, but they don't actually function democratically. They function as totalitarian dictatorship structures. And we see this, in all professional associations, for example. It's not doctors deciding anymore. It's somebody at the College of Physicians and Surgeons saying, you will do this or you'll lose your license. And it's every other professional association too. And it's every union. And it's like all the structures in our society. Almost every large corporation is this: you will get the jab, you will, or you're fired. Out there, like our way or the highway. Hold it. That's not how employment contracts work, right? An employment agreement is, hold it, you assign me the tasks, I do the tasks, and you pay me, right? You don't run my life. Like we need to go back to the way these relationships used to be. Anyway, I've nattered on for a long way.
No, that's good. I was going to say that, sadly, we pretty much have to work within the confines that we are right now, though. Like we still have to work within our own government. We still have to do and I agree. Oh, you don't have to, because then you can just put your hands up and say, no, I refuse to do that. But we still have to deal with, I'm just trying to think of something. You have to go out and register your car. Like, oh, you can't just, no, I'm not registering my car this year. People have also said, no, I'm not paying my taxes this year. There comes a point where, you can revolt on that. And if we did it all, 100% of us did it, the government would have to take notice. But the problem is there's so few and far between that I think then we just feel like we're just trying to do our own thing and, you cower into your little hole. And I don't want to do that. I'd like to come up with some solutions. And, the idea behind the Alberta Prosperity Project is we at least have an idea to say the massive corruption, the tyranny that's happening from the federal government, we have a way out of it. We want to stop that and basically make our own province sovereign. And then we can even look at that as being our own sovereign personal. sovereign families, sovereign community.
Start with that.
And yeah, and definitely start with that. And because I think it really should start as a ground level, grassroots level, to say, okay, I have to look after myself. I have to look after my family. I have to look after my community, and work its way up there. But unfortunately, the way it's set up right now is it's not. There's so much corruption that we've understood, anyways, that's coming from our cities and towns, municipalities,
Yep.
Provincial government too. There's been some questionable things happening, and federal. Don't get me started. It's like every day there's something to definitely be talking about. But it would be interesting to have, like in your book, The Way Forward. Do you talk about these issues, and what is the way forward? I mean, without maybe jumping to the punchline of the book, but basically to just say, so if we're looking at all of these issues, and there are a lot coming at us, like whether or not it's, I don't know, I had some notes down, pharmaceutical, climate change, all that sort of stuff that's coming at us, and it looks like we're trying to deflect it all, and it looks like an impossibility. What can we do to keep ourselves sane, grounded, respectful to everybody? And if anything, I feel like, I think somewhere in there was a graph that showed what your conscious level is, and there's something about being really low, and that's kind of where you really feel crappy. And then when you're past that level and you're into your upper consciousness, maybe want to talk a little bit about that, because I found that to be a little bit fascinating.
Yeah, sure. And because your recent comments are taking us into the field of spiritual warfare as well. But let me first of all just talk about the way forward in terms of a new way to structure our communities and our everything. And because everything that we thought was democratic has been corrupted and turned into totalitarian. So they're all functioning as if they were dictatorships or totalitarian organizations and structures in our society. That obviously the democratic structures we have had and thought protected us against totalitarianism didn't do that. Mm-hmm. So we kind of have to go back to the drawing board and think, hey, how can we structure our communities, our governments in such a way that they are not so liable to be turned into dictatorship or dictatorial structures? And that begins with instead of having a top-down structure, a bottom-up structure, like you say. And it begins with the concept of the sovereign individual, then the sovereign family, then the sovereign community. And so maybe the Alberta Prosperity Project, people, all you intellectuals, your think tank, want to think about this. It's not simply a matter of okay, we're going to have an independent Alberta. We're going to, as a province, Alberta is going to separate from Canada, and then everything's going to be okay. No, because we've got massive corruption at the level of the provincial government. We've got corruption at the level of our municipal governments. So, we need to address all that, and it comes from freedom and responsibility pushed down to the individual, and then the family, and then the community. And so we need to start at this grassroots level to rethink, okay, what's the relationship of the individual to the community? Because really, whether it's a community of 20 people or a community of 20 million people, it's the same, really, it should be the same relationship to the community. And each of us has responsibilities, right? So that's where the rethinking needs to start. And I give some ideas in the last chapter that we can kind of start to do that. Okay. But you did also touch on, and the whole idea of a sovereign individual also touches on the idea of spiritual warfare. Yeah. And spiritual warfare ties in very closely with mind war and psychological warfare. Because, we have different levels of consciousness, as you say. And if you're in a low level of consciousness, then you are controllable. That's exactly why, it's exactly the purpose of the spiritual warfare, is to keep us in a low spiritual consciousness where we can be controlled. because as we rise into a higher level of consciousness, we simply can't be controlled because we're controlled from within. Mm-hmm. Think of it in a very simple way. For example, like, you say, we have to be a part of this society. I have largely, well, maybe not largely, but, it's a process. Extracting ourselves from the existing structures of society is a process, not an event. And all of us, can look at, okay, how can I kind of distance myself from these structures, be more independent, be more self-reliant, etc., even if it's just like growing food in the garden, because, that's one of the things. They're trying to create mass starvation throughout the world. That's one of the ways they'll kill lots of people. And then the government will control you by controlling access to food. So the way to escape from that kind of control is to become self-reliant in terms of food, or not necessarily you personally, but within your community. So form a community that includes people who grow stuff that you don't, that whatever, or, directly that involves farmers that grow organic beef or sheep or chickens or eggs or whatever. That's part of it, right? Self-sufficient in terms of food, because everything has been weaponized and they are using food against us. They're using medicine against us, food against us, water against us. You notice the municipalities and provinces trying to gain more and more control over water, over farm animals.
And we actually talked about this last year, and it was funny because it was, so what's the next thing? Well, they'll probably come after water. Guess what? Drought this year. Right, even though I don't know, you're up near in Peace River country. We had quite a dump of snow today down in southern Alberta. So, and it's still going to be snowing for the next day. So again, it's one of these people say, you know what? If it's one snow, that's not what it is. We need tons of snow, and we need it to be here, and snowpack, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not going to go on to that because I'm not a meteorologist, et cetera, but I know every year, southern Alberta, let's just say southeastern Alberta, always has some sort of drought. They're always in those conditions, and we're always concerned about runoff. This happens every single year. Every single year. It's just that now through Environment and Climate Change Canada, when they changed their name, has now broadcasted that, like, I get hourly updates, it feels like, saying, oh, this is what's going on, and you should be afraid of the snow, and don't drive, stay at home, and ration your water.
And of course, there are many aspects to all of that, Kerry, right? One aspect is that be afraid of everything, right? Don't ride a bicycle without a helmet. My God, that's unsafe. Oh, good grief. All of us rode bikes without helmets, and very few people, really.
Again, the argument is, and I've had this conversation too, is remember riding in the back of a pickup truck down a farmer's field, and, you're just sitting on the back and you just run along. If you tried that in the city, you'd get ticketed, et cetera, et cetera. Well, again, you're out in the farmer's road. Chances are you're not going to get plowed into or T-boned by another car. But there were also less cars on the road. The vehicles were all made out of steel, so that they'd hit and they'd bounce off of each other. I'm kind of making that up. But essentially, things were different.
Were you in any car accidents where your cars just bounce off each other? No, I wasn't. No. I
Maybe back in the 50s when you're back in the 50s when they were totally made of steel and they only did 30 miles an hour.
Right.
But
part of it is the constant fear. And that's essential for psychological warfare.
Yeah.
All the psychological operations are based on fear, because fear is, you can imagine that at the lowest level. It's not quite, but very close to the lowest level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in the spiritual world, we often talk about fear and love as being opposites. And so, they want to get us in this state of fear, keep us in fear. And I see so many people, right? There's still people running around with little masks on their face. They haven't got the memo that it never did do anything. And it's over now, so they're fearful, right? People are afraid of everything. People won't. Well, some people, the fearful ones, they won't talk to other people. I mean, heck, one of the things that I loved about Alberta, it's not the only place, but Alberta is known for it, right? I mean, you go somewhere and, you're waiting in a lineup. You talk to the people. around you, right? You just like, we talk to each other, but some of that has kind of faded away and people are afraid to talk. I was just swimming the other day and, I used to be, you'd have conversations with the other people in the lane, and this guy beside me just wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't talk. I don't know.
It's sad when the society is like that. I went grocery shopping today, and I always talk to people. It just doesn't seem to bother me, anyways. And some people will be, oh yeah, they try and have a small talk, and at least that kind of breaks the ice or whatever. But there are people that as soon as you start talking to them, they think that you are nuts. All you're saying is hi, how are you, or you make a little joke about being in line. And it's like, I don't know you. I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. And that's a sad state of what we're seeing socially, right? Yeah. And I remember growing up with my parents. They would talk to anybody as well, and they still do, I think, for the most part. Although maybe not so much anymore. And again, that would be a sad state if that's the way it was. But we don't seem to do that anymore. We don't. Well, number one, we buy everything online, or certainly seems to be like that, right? There's a lot of stuff you can buy online. There's reasons why stores are going bankrupt, because the brick and mortar stores just there's nobody going shopping, and we could totally talk about a bunch of different subjects based on that, because it really is. It's designed to force us to stay in our own little bubble and not talk to people. It's amazing that they haven't cut off our social media yet, because I think if people lost total social contact, even through social media, I think people would not know what to do with themselves. And
but it's not what we need. It's not really social contact.
No, I agree.
It's an illusion of social contact, and it's not real people we're dealing with. And that's one of the points that I make quite strongly, is we need to get away from that and get back to relations with real people in the flesh. That's what's psychologically satisfying for us humans. That's what we need. And it's separating from that was part of why lockdowns, right? Because people become psychologically ill when we don't interact with other people. We are social animals. We need it, right? And since we've kind of taken away from the topic of spiritual warfare, but it has brought us back to psychological warfare, and this fear of other people and the uncomfortableness in relating to other people does touch on what I do explain in the book, is that the 4 steps, or the 4 phases of psychological warfare, which are polarization, tribalization, dehumanization, and killing.
Yeah.
Right. So the first step is polarization. That is, you get people to divide in antagonistic groups. And almost all of these things that are kind of pushed on us to divide us, they're all made up crap. They're nonsense. Oh, the liberals and conservatives, and the Democrats and the Republicans. Like these terms don't even mean anything anymore. They're all totalitarians now. So and then there's the straight and the gay. Like, there's no reason for us to be. So what? Like, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. That's and right. I don't want to hear about it actually either. So like, I have friends who are gay. Like, everybody knows people who are like, there's no problem with that. There doesn't need to be a problem with that. Yeah. So, we get people to divide into groups and fight against each other. And then the media makes up stuff, right? Probably everybody listening to this knows that. They've been at some meeting or something where, CBC or CTV or Global, something like that was there. And then they see the report on the news and they think, that's not what happened. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't like that at all. Yeah. And they talk, this was they just make stuff up. Yep. And so this is to divide people into antagonistic groups. And so people are sitting at home getting angry, right, over something that never actually happened. Yeah. And they say, those, whatever, those conservatives, they're such jerks, right? Whatever. Yep. Or those liberals, or those NDPers. And, so we get to divide into antagonistic groups. And then the next step, so that's polarization.
Yes. Yeah.
And the next step is tribalization. So then we retreat into our little group, right?
That's
And
right.
social media is great for this. We get into these social media silos and we don't connect with groups that, not surprisingly, but that we're not interested in. Like,
right.
I'm not on any like NDP Facebook sites.
You know what's funny? I am.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
And the reason I am, and Chris and I actually mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. We actually bought memberships for the NDP, and there's two reasons for that. Number one is when they have their new with leadership race, Donald, I'm not sure if you're frozen or not, but when they have their new leadership race, we can actually vote for who that leader is. And likewise, I like seeing what they're actually propagating to everybody else. Is Donald locked up, or is it just me locked up?
No. It's probably me. I could still hear your voice.
Okay, good. Okay.
So if I freeze again, you just talk until I
just keep
unfreeze.
talking.
It's kind of like, you remember those games, Frozen Tag?
I remember that.
You just keep going until I unfreeze.
So yeah, so really it comes down to now I can vote for the leader, or at least have my say for that, and probably choose the least worthy, because isn't that what we would normally do?
Well, they've done it to us. They've done it to us for decades.
But also, I do find it interesting how much propaganda and how many emails come out from the NDP to their members, and every one of them is, "Can I have $5? If you like this person, can you support them with $5?" Right? And most people will say, "Yeah, $5 is I can totally do $5. Don't that's all I need to do." And it makes them feel good. They've accomplished something. They've given to something, and but it is interesting to see their strategy on how that works. So that's the reason why I've and likewise why I actually subscribe to some of these other Facebook pages and stuff, which totally is not with my own mindset. I just want to see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And what's most bizarre, and hopefully some of our viewers are doing the same thing. They're actually viewing these other sites as well. More than half of the memes that might have a Justin Trudeau head on it for us, if you want to call it that, have a Pierre Poilievre head on for them. It's the exact same meme. It doesn't matter. It's both sides of both wings of the same bird. Right. And so it doesn't matter what you're looking at. It's being used against us both ways.
Yeah.
So that's why I follow both, because I just and half of the stuff is just hilarious to see some of the comments as well. I actually follow Justin Trudeau on X. And if you don't follow Justin Trudeau, you have to follow the alternate alternate profile, and it's called Justin Trudeau's ego. And it's hilarious too, because
it's so big. It's so big. It's own social media presence.
It says, today, having said what happened with the wacko comment today or yesterday from Pierre Poilievre, the ego. Actually, I'll look it up just because it's hilarious just to see some of the stuff that
and I noticed that Rebel News has already come out with wacko t-shirts you can buy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and again, it's one of these things that's just to further divide us, right? And as much as we may find it amusing in order to do that, it really does divide us, and that's probably not in our best interest in order to be doing that, but we have to have some entertainment when we're looking at some of this stuff, because otherwise it just feels like it just drains you. And that's kind of what I began with, was that there are days where I just feel drained. There are days when I get emails from people saying, I've lost my job and blah, blah, blah. What can I do? And honestly, I just don't have the answers. I wish I did. And so I very often will forward them on to someone, or try and reply back and at least let them know that that it's been read, and I agree with them, or I try to console them. but there's only so much that we can do. Right?
And absolutely, I mean, and that's a personal problem.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, right too.
you know what I mean? And many of us have been faced with that. I've been faced with that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've been thrown out of your job, you've been fired or pushed out or whatever. You just say, you know, I can't work in this shithole anymore. You know, I'm not going along with that. And you've left. Yeah. So what do you do with your life? Well, everyone has to decide differently.
Yeah.
Like, I can't decide for you, Kerry. You can't tell someone else, oh, now you need to do this with your life. No, it's your life.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, we're all, if we haven't yet gone through a crisis in our life, personally, expect to, for all of our listeners, right?
Yeah.
If your life is just chugging along as per normal so far, well, good for you, but expect to face a crisis.
Yeah.
Because it's coming to all of us.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it wouldn't hurt to give some thought ahead of time to, oh, I wonder if I get fired, or, you know, if they tell me, you know, if I don't get a digital ID, or if I don't use you're going to get paid in the digital currency. Right. So you either get into the digital currency or you're out of work.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
You've been reading my emails, because that's the next big thing that people have been asking about is, I don't want to get a digital ID. And again, we've had this, we've actually had a couple of webinars on the difference between a digital ID, say you're signing up for the Alberta digital ID, versus, you know, because they want to look at your medical records or whatever, versus a central bank digital currency ID and how that would be linked to that. Those scare the bejesus out of me. But in terms of, if I had to log in and just see what my, you know, if I still owe a speeding ticket or something like that, then, you know, that's just the way it is. And that's, unfortunately, that's the way it's done up, is a digital ID. The same way as it's your own debit card through a bank. And, you know, that's kind of just done it digitally. But a lot of people put way too much emphasis, I think, into the word digital. And they're afraid that if it's online, it will definitely be shared. Maybe it will be shared at some point, but as of right now, you know, we've had Brett Oland on from Bow Valley Credit Union, and there are certain things that can be shared and certain things that just cannot be shared, and it's,
so they can be hacked.
They can be hacked. They you know.
And even if the law says they can't be shared, I was just trying to search my mind. I don't want to name a financial institution by mistake, so I won't name any, but it was just in the news today or yesterday, some leading financial institution in the United States that illegally sold customer information, like millions and millions of customers. They just sold their information illegally. Yeah. So like, trust is gone. Yeah. You can't trust these people to do what the law says. And so, we get gradually, that's like I say, it's a process of extracting ourselves from these things. And, you know, everyone needs to think about that individually in their own lives. Yeah. But anyway, so psychological warfare, polarization, tribalization, we tend to, we retreat into our own groups, and we think we look at everyone else as a threat. Look at how everybody else looked at us as a threat when we weren't vaxxed. Oh, you're a threat. Yeah, you can't come for Christmas. Yeah. You know, you can't do this. You can't go here because you're not vaxxed. You're a threat. Well, of course, in reality, and I think many people now realize that there was never any threat. Like it's the vaccinated people that are you know, a threat medically.
I was going to say that the threat may have been so small too, right? So
but unless this is a perception, right? Yeah. We see other people as a threat, and like the political parties are a great one. NDPs, you know, conservative, liberal, whatever. We quickly put a label on people we disagree with, and they stop being real human beings, and they just become sort of an avatar of that label. And the label is a caricature of a real human being, right? And so, and that leads directly into dehumanization. We say, oh, those liberals, those socialists, they're not like us. They're not really even fully human. And you know, there's so many examples of this. For example, that those people don't deserve to, you know, to live or to get healthcare or to travel. Remember Justin Trudeau saying, oh, you can choose to not be vaccinated, but don't think you can get on a train or an airplane and sit next to vaccinated people. You know, That's what he said. But then, of course, the implication is because your tribe doesn't deserve to travel.
Yeah.
Right. So then they're less than human now. And this leads directly into dehumanizing. And that is leads directly into killing. And we're seeing this already, right? This maid thing that's gone absolutely berserk. Yeah. Right. Oh, well, you know, you're near death anyway. Why don't we just kill you? Like, it's just gone berserk. So we can see that as one. It's this, whatever. So I've heard the 6th leading cause of death now in Canada.
32,000.
It's not assisted suicide. If you look into how it's actually done, it's not suicide at all. It's not assisted suicide. It's you giving the doctor permission to murder you. That's exactly how it's done.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but I mean, anyway. So there's all, as I say, in what the hell's going on? It's only a small step from there, right? Because basically now it's you giving the doctor the right to kill you. So it's only a small step from there now to like your son or daughter giving the doctor permission to kill you.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
And in many cases, that's what's happening, right? We know people who are whatever, who people who are not healthy in whatever way, like physically ill, mentally ill, like they're depressed. We know this. So convincing a depressed person to kill themselves is easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is abuse.
Yeah.
This isn't compassion. You know, and I know that there's the compassion, you know, part of it and all that, but yeah, this maid is not compassion.
Yeah.
It's anyway. So yeah, this is one obvious way in which we have the beginnings of the killing phase. And yeah. And now, of course, your condition doesn't even have to be terminal, right? You can have some kind of a medical or even a psychological condition that will never kill you.
Yeah.
But if you're unhappy with it, yeah, the government will kill you and your doctor will pull the trigger or whatever. So yeah, that's what happens. So whenever we find ourselves blaming someone else or hating someone else, we've been psyoped. It's all a psyop. Okay, so that's the part to be careful of is that, you know, catch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You say, oh, it's those guys, you know, we need to stop those. No. These are our neighbors.
Yeah.
Our neighbors are not the enemy.
No.
We need to love our neighbors. Yeah.
That's what they say. I remember growing up with them.
Of course.
Yeah.
And right. We forget who is my neighbor. Remember that. You probably remember the exchange, right, from the gospel, right? It started out with the question, you know, what's the greatest commandment of all? And Jesus said, well, the first one, right? They're listed in order priority. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. Yeah. And then Jesus went on and he said, in the second one, that is the second most important, is similar. You know, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, of course, that's not one of the 10, but we do find that elsewhere in the first 5 books of the Bible, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. So Jesus wasn't just making it up. Mm-hmm. It is in the law. And then the question came, well, who is my neighbor? And Jesus answered that, not directly, but he answered that by telling a story of the Good Samaritan, as we call it today.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right? A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, going down because Jericho is at a much lower elevation, right? From Jerusalem to Jericho. And he was set upon by thieves, and everybody knows the story probably, right? And a Pharisee went by. Now, the Pharisees were really respected, right? Oh, they're good people. They're really holy. Oh, he saw that man lying there, and he walked by on the other side of the road. He just ignored him, right? And then a priest, right? Oh, he'll do something. No, he just walked by. And then a Samaritan, the most despised people. Like, they hated the Samaritans even more than they hated the Romans. So the most despised person imaginable came and helped the guy. And so Jesus said, so who was a neighbor to the man who was set upon by thieves? Right? The implication, Jesus didn't say it in so many words, but the understanding is everyone is your neighbor.
That's right.
And our neighbors are not the enemy, and everyone is our neighbor. We need to help our neighbors and love our neighbors. And that's what will help us get out of this. And that's what will help to take us out of the consciousness of fear and into the consciousness of love.
Yes.
And if we can maintain the consciousness of love and not be drawn down into fear, anger, blame, hatred, vengeance, all those kind of things that I still see the whole freedom movement is full with, right?
Yeah.
People saying things that they would, like to do to Mr. Trudeau or to other people or to whatever. That's not the consciousness we're going to need to get out of this, because as long as you're in that consciousness, you've been psyoped. Mm-hmm. You're captured by the psychological operation. That's exactly what they want. They want you to divide into antagonistic groups, and it's us against them, and we got to kill those guys, we got to hang those, whatever. Yes, justice needs to be done at some point, but not by you, not by me. Mm-hmm. Our job is to love, and like to create the consciousness of love within ourselves, to spread that within our community, and to figure out ways to organize our communities so they cannot be corrupted and become totalitarian.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. It makes me not want to call Justin Trudeau a dink anymore.
It's hard not to, right? We've spent our whole lives, because look at my white hair. You're so much younger than me, right? Yeah, I've spent my whole life, a lot of 6 decades, calling out people I didn't like. And yeah, so it's a challenge for all of us to change that.
Yeah.
Be tolerant, forgive.
Forgive, for sure. Yeah. I do want to show, just because it's gnawing at me now, I do want to show the Justin Trudeau egos here. This is the site, the alternate ego site for Justin Trudeau. Today I was humiliated by the viral hashtag Wacko Trudeau. That's why I've ordered Mr. of Foreheads, Mr. Mark Gerritsen, and Mr. of Grooming, Marcelin, to post blatant, irrefutable lies. We're out of ideas, so we've resorted to spreading misinformation and disinformation. It's actually a really funny account. So if you follow it, yeah, it's just amazing how it. We've come to this where there are so many troll accounts out there. There's I know there's troll accounts for Chris at the Whistle Stop. There's troll accounts for a lot of people that I follow online. And if you do a search for them, they'll show up as being like two accounts. One is their name, and then one will be their name or some variation of their name with some really skewy face. And again, it's too bad that we're set into a situation where there's so much division going on. And it would be nice to be able to just say, okay, you know what? We need to just put down the axe. We need to cooperate and try and figure a way out of this, because like you said, I've noticed it in the freedom groups here. People have kind of gone into their own tribes and they're trying to do things, and I've been reached out to a few times in order to, don't go with this group, you should be doing this instead. And it's like, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm not telling you what to do. Right? Well, actually, having said that, I do tell people what to do. I say, get involved. Get involved with whatever floats your boat, whatever you think spiritually, whatever you think, in your own individual consciousness, whatever you think is the right path for you, just get involved.
Do something. Isn't that the title of Preston Manning's recent article?
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. As long as you're doing something, I think that's good, because if you're just sitting on the couch or a keyboard warrior and bitching, you are not going to be a happy person at all. Right. So, and get out and do some of these meetings. And speaking of which, I mean, I'm not going to wrap things up. I mean, you and I could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours, but we're not going to do that, because I know there's a hockey game or something going on tonight that maybe people might be interested in. But did we actually finish the four?
Briefly. So tribalization, polarization, dehumanization, and killing. And that's the process. Right, the psychological warfare process that they're trying to take all of us through. You've noticed in the last few years how they constantly trying to incite us to violence in the freedom movement.
Oh yes, for sure.
And yeah, they want us to go there.
Yeah.
And so far, the vast majority of people in the freedom movement have resisted that.
Cooler heads have prevailed for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just having the carbon tax protest and having the RCMP officers in the ditch, just kind of arms crossed and staring. Like, if that didn't look confrontational, I don't know what did. But
they're Gestapo goons.
Yeah, cooler heads prevailed, and nothing happened. So that's great. And I know they're still doing that. They're now in day 31, I believe, of that. They have changed locations, as far as I know, from near Cochrane on Highway 22 and Highway 1 near Calgary, and now they're up in Lacombe, just north of Lacombe on Highway 2. And I do want to get up there, but just life has not presented itself in order for me to do that. So my apologies if I have to apologize to anybody. I don't think I have to apologize for not going, but it's just, life happens, and you end up trying to do what you can. And so that's one of the reasons why I do these, is because at least this I can manage. And again, for everybody that's out there, do whatever you can manage. Don't feel compelled that you have to go and do something, or give a donation if you can't afford it, or volunteer if you can't have time to do it. But do what you can. I think that is very important, to at least be involved with something. And if anything, it keeps you connected. It keeps you grounded, knowing that if you're doing something that's a worthwhile cause, you're probably going to be able to take these steps through this.
Right? With real people in person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so maybe that's where we wrap up here. I mean, again, there's so much in this book. I mean, it's I can't wait to get my own copy of it. And but I'm just going to show up on the screen here. There it is. And you can go to, I put it in here as well.
It's my website.
Cominghomespirit.com is where you can get a hold of Donald, and you can even buy his books there. He's got a vlog and a blog, and a dog and a truck, and all those other things up there. That's the way it is. This is great. And likewise, the other thing I noticed, which is great, under media, you actually have other podcasts. And I know you're a busy guy, certainly this month. I will throw up your calendar here. But if you want, go on there, take a look at all these podcasts. People that we know, I mean, Sean Newman, Shadow at Night, Odessa. I mean, there's lots of people that you've been on with that are similar, and great conversationalist, Tish, as well. And I wanted to show the poster here for where you're going to be. Presentation by Donald Lee is the way forward. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this and kind of give an idea for people. So I think you froze. So I'm just going to continue on. Alberta presentations: Grand Prairie, Fairview, Fort Saskatchewan, Westlock, Edmonton, Wedminster, Bonnyville, 2 in Bonnyville, Bourneville, Red Deer, Drayton Valley, Calgary, Lethbridge, and Duffield. I'm definitely going to try and make it to the one in Calgary. That's on Monday, May 27th. I'll definitely give that an effort there. And but we're still going around. We're doing our pension plan tour. You can always go and check that out at albertafirstpension.ca and see where we are. But otherwise, it would be great if our viewers were able to go out and see Donald at one of these events going on here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll copy and paste these and put them into the kind of the show notes. And that way you don't have to go back through the video and actually see this particular poster. Or maybe I'll just post the poster in the show notes. That sounds like a great idea, Kerry. So glad you're on top of things. It looks like we've lost him. That does happen. There he is. Bring him back on. There he is again. Good old Alberta internet.
Yeah, it's supposed to be good, but sometimes. Yeah,
that's okay. Good. Did you want to have any final words? I was just telling everybody, get out, visit you, and I'll post the poster as well as copy the text and put it into the show notes too, so people have an idea of where you are. But any last words that you want to leave before we sign off?
Also, all the APP members and supporters throughout Alberta, God bless all of you. I love you.
Excellent.
And keep up the fight. But remember, it's not really a fight against anyone.
No, that's right too.
It's a fight for, not a fight against.
Yeah, I agree. That's great final words for that. And of course, we do these webinars every Wednesday, and we've got a panel of guests that I just have to make sure that I have to coordinate all this stuff. So it's every Wednesday we do these, and looking forward to doing a lot more. Donald, I'll look forward to seeing you on May 27th in Calgary. And if not, then I'll hunt you down somewhere else on some other day that might work for me while you're in Alberta. Otherwise, then you are on podcast. You're also heading out east. Do you have a calendar or anything for going out east? Where
I've had still work. Not really. I have May's pretty much filled up. I don't have too much more time. If there are other people who would like to have me come and speak in their town, please contact me. The easiest way is maybe through my website, cominghomespirit.com.
We would.
Too many days left. I am taking some time over the long weekend to spend with some of my grandkids. So
good, yeah. Excellent. Well, we would definitely love to have you at the APP supporters meeting on June 1st, if you could.
Yeah, I'm planning. Yeah, I'm planning.
Okay,
I got to buy my ticket before you sell out, I guess.
Yes, and we may. I think there's only like 400 tickets, and I'm pretty sure there's probably almost 200 gone already. So I still have to buy my own ticket. I still need to eat there too. So, and again, it's like, even though I'm actually working there, people say, well, don't you get a free meal? No, you know what? In this sort of situation, I'd much rather give the money and just go into a great cause anyways. And I do volunteer a lot of my time and effort. And I, for something like this, it's well worth it. I feel full, and maybe that's my spiritual connection to this. And it feels like I actually do something when I'm doing these webinars, when I'm going out and talking, when I'm going out and meeting people. And it's just great to be involved that way. So for everybody out there that does manage to walk up and say hi, thank you. And please do not be shy to come up and say hi. I actually had a little old lady not too long ago that I actually had to approach her because she was staring at me and was kind of this awkward stare. And I walked up to her and said hi. I said, you're probably thinking you know me. And she goes, oh, I know you. I was just too afraid to come up and talk to you. It's like, do I look this scary? I don't think so. Anyway, so that's, by all means, say hi, drop by any one of our events that we can do. Again, go onto the albertaprosperityproject.com website and take a look at some of the events and get involved that way. Donald, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And we will definitely see you in and around Alberta, and definitely in this year. So thanks again, Donald.
Thank you, Kerry. God bless you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.